Everyone, I'm Jan Beekes, and joining us, as always, is our ESPN analyst, David Bailey, former motocross champion. Now, David, the heat here, a huge factor. The hottest conditions we've had all year. What will that mean for the riders?
Well, it's going to be punishing out there on the racetrack. Motocross is, without a doubt, one of the most physically demanding sports in the world. Add to it this heat and humidity, and I think the riders that can just suffer through it the longest and have prepared in it the best will come out on top.
Let's talk about Steve Lamson. He's won the last 3 races overall. He's come off the racetrack. After winning a moto, he looks fresh. You would think he has the advantage?
Well, I think so. And the confidence, too, after winning 3 races in a row. And he's had things go pretty good. He's put himself in the right places, and he hasn't had any bad luck. And I think if the other riders want to beat him, they're going to have to hope for Lamson to have bad luck.
This racetrack, much different than what we had a week ago. That was a truly outdoor national track, but now kind of like a supercross?
Yeah, a lot like a supercross. It's very flat here, and all they could really do to make it exciting for the spectators and for the riders really is to add a lot of supercross-style obstacles, and that would, I think, be in the favor of our series points leader, Damon Huffman, who has struggled through this series, and maybe this is just the track he needs.
Damon Huffman, we'll have to see how he fares, but let's first take a look at the racetrack.
You see all those stripes across the racetrack? Those are jumps. We told you this was a supercross, and we weren't kidding. Now, there's also been a lot of rain here, so that could prove to be one line here and there.
The rain has really brought up the humidity. The third member of our broadcast team, Art Ekman, has more on that story.
The temperature down here at race time, 95 degrees. The humidity near 100%. It's had everyone hopping prior to race time to get ready, especially the tire suppliers and the medical staffs.
I'm not 100% sure. It's really wet out there at the moment, and so I think I'm going to stick with the soft compound for the beginning, you know. So
it's muddy now, so they're going to be using a mud tire, which is spaced out farther for cleaning out purposes, so they can get the rubber on the ground down into the hard pack. As it dries out and the first moto starts, they'll be switching over to a closer pattern tire for the drier surfaces. And then, if it starts to rain again, like it may, they're going to go back to the mud tire, the spaced out tire, and it's just going to create havoc again.
Our concern is dehydration. I told the guys at the riders meeting that, you know, they knew they need to consume a lot of fluids, and we're at this point planning to run the motos at full length. One consideration would be to lengthen the intermission between the 2 sets of motos. A longer break would give the guys a chance to get more fluids back in their body. But then the weather becomes a factor. There's thunder showers going to move in this afternoon, and I just feel if I lengthen the break, more than likely the thunder showers are going to move in on me.
Lots of guessing games today for both the AMA and the Crews. Jan?
Thanks, Art. A guessing game to be sure, especially on the starting line. These are Steve Lamson's mechanics of Mike Goslar and Jeff Stanton. They're working harder than anybody out there, but if you were Steve Lamson, what tire would you want to get off the start here?
Well, you'd want like a mud tire where the knobs are further apart and a little bit taller, so you can hook up in that kind of mud where the starting line is still very muddy because not that many riders have ridden on it. But once you get out on the racetrack, it's kind of catch-22 because in the groove, the fastest line, it's pretty hard packed. So I think it's pretty tough to decide. You want to go for the whole shot, then when you get on the racetrack, you suffer a little.
One of the guys that wants to go for that whole shot is Mike Brown that you see here. Second in the points currently. He wants to make it run at our points leader, Damon Huffman.
You can see right there he's got water, and it's going to be important for these guys to drink. See, the thing about motocross, it's so tough, is you don't get timeouts, you don't get to come in, and there's no substitutes, so you've got to drink water at the beginning and make sure you're well hydrated to go that full 30 minutes.
Denny Stevenson is another rider we'll be keeping an eye on, has a good year on his privateer Suzuki. This man, Ryan Hughes, on the Kawasaki. A charge, David.
He's on a charge. He looks pretty focused right there, and you know, I think this is the guy that everyone fears right now. He's been the guy that's been winning all the races, but right here, Damon Huffman is the best guy on a supercross-style track, but with all the rain, as muddy as it's been, I don't know if he's going to get a chance to put that skill to work.
He'll put the skill to work from the Supercross series. However, in Supercross, you don't often see this muddy of a start. Damon Huffman and the others underway. The all-important start. We'll see who gets the whole shot. Looks like it was a Suzuki. We'll check the number. He went to the front at 67, Tony LaRusso, and then Chad Pedersen comes to the front.
And going to the first corner, Ryan Hughes, there he is right there. He came from the other side of the straightaway. He had a good line going to the corner, played it smart, took the inside, and now he's got the lead.
He also made that double jump there, which gave him a nice little lead coming off the start. David, you mentioned he's already got his sleeves rolled up.
Ready to do business. Yeah, he's got him rolled all the way up. I don't know. I've never seen anyone roll up quite that high. It's like a short sleeve jersey, but now you can see what I was talking about, how it's so muddy everywhere, but if you find that one main groove, it's still pretty dry. So tire selection is a real challenge here.
Steve Lamson, you saw him just briefly in the back of the picture. He has made his way up. It looks like third place. Now he's working on second. Ryan Hughes has got to be concerned about him.
Well, I think so, but right now, you couldn't have asked for anything better to have the lead with a couple of privateers behind him to sort of act as a buffer before he gets any competition.
We'll find out how this shakes out when we return.
AMA Motocross on ESPN2 is being brought to you by Honda, defending champion.
Welcome back to Troy, Ohio. This is moto number 1. Number 9, Ryan Hughes is our leader, but number 5, Steve Lamson, already in second place.
Now, I can't believe how fast he worked his way into second. I mean, we're in the early going. Oh, it looks like a rider down. I think that's Mikhail Pichon. And you can see right there how muddy it is in the center of the racetrack. There's an inside and outside line. The outside's probably the driest, but you can see the difference, the contrast of the racetrack, where it's really dry in one spot and really muddy in another.
One of the spots on the racetrack that's pretty dry is here through the woods. This looks beautiful conditions here, David.
Well, it looks fantastic. You can see the riders are able to go pretty much wherever they want, and they don't have to ride through any mud, and also right through here. Now, some of it under the trees doesn't get as much rain. Also, certain areas of the track are really flat where that water just stands in there, but right in here, the water doesn't get a chance to soak in much. It tends to run off the racetrack, and Ryan Hughes still holding on to a pretty comfortable margin over Lamson.
You saw Jeff Stanton there briefly standing out on the racetrack applauding for his rider Steve Lamson on the Honda. Of course, Jeff Stanton working as a consultant for Honda. How important is that to have a guy out there on the racetrack, you know, effectively your coach, you know, spurring you on?
Well, it's pretty neat, especially a rider like Jeff who's raced here before last year. In fact, I think he led the second moto quite a ways, and he knows where the good lines are, and he can spot stuff that you can't see, and he's pretty recognizable out there, and he can point out a line maybe where Lamson didn't notice it, and he can make time or possibly make a pass on Ryan.
You can see that Honda has both parts of the track covered, because as he went by the mechanics area, Mike Gosselar, his actual mechanic for Steve Lamson, was also out there trying to get Lamson fired up. But I don't know how much firing up Steve Lamson needs.
Well, these are the two guys that I think are probably the fastest riders in the class. I mean, Huffman really, I thought would be a lot faster, but he hasn't impressed me so far this season, and it's really between these two guys. I mean, if they keep riding with this kind of pace and getting the good starts they get, this could come down between these two guys.
Ryan Hughes, our leader from Escondido, California, but it looks like the real challenge is coming from Steve Lamson. But wow, you can see that Ryan Hughes very, very aggressive on this part of the track. But we talked about Mike Gosselar, we talked about the Honda mechanics. Art Ekman has caught up with Mike.
Well, Mike, obviously the little time off has not hampered Steve's effort. He's pulling out.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good. You know, both of us were on a roll kind of, and then having a week off. You look forward to having a week off. When you have it, you look forward to racing. And that weekend, I'll tell you, it was weird not racing after we'd been racing for 3 weeks straight.
Well, he was picking up time in the twisty area back here, right after the start-finish line.
Yeah, you know, he felt really good in practice, and I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing the last few weeks. So it looks like he's keeping true to his word.
David, what does it mean for these guys getting a week off? I would think that as brutal as this sport is, you'd need some rest.
Well, Lamson's won 3 races in a row, you got to remember, and if I had that kind of momentum, I wouldn't want a week off. I just want to keep right on going, keep that momentum going.
Well, speaking of momentum, oh, check this out. Steve Lamson goes to the outside. He's making a move for the lead. Right now, they're swapping lines back and forth. Ryan Hughes getting the better of. Now, is Steve Lamson one of these riders kind of like McGrath that won't follow another guy?
Yes, and you can see right there that he's got a little different rhythm through that jump section right there, and he's able to jump through there a little bit faster. Unable to make the pass right here, but you can see he's just, he will never follow. He just refuses to. Anywhere possible he can take a different line, he'll do it, and that's how you do pass.
Now, sometimes when you take a different line, however, you lose that momentum. It looked like he tried something there, got on a real slick surface, and then lost a few bike legs, but he may be able to use that line later.
I think it's okay to lose a little time. I mean, I think right here Lamson has caught Ryan. Ryan went to the lead right off the bat, and Lamson had to work his way into second. And he's able to close on Ryan all the time. So I don't think he's that concerned about losing a little bit of time. What it does is when you take a different line, it forces Ryan possibly to wonder if that's a better line, and the crowd gets a little bit excited. It makes him nervous, and I think that's just a good tactic on Lamson's part.
But how much can a guy like Ryan Hughes, David, how can he sense what lines Lamson's taking?
Well, you can hear the crowd sometimes get into it. And you know he's not just right on your rear fender. The crowd wouldn't be that excited if he was that close. But if the rider starts to take a different line, a little mistake by Ryan there. But if a rider takes a different line, you know, the crowd kind of gets into that. And it makes you nervous. And it makes you wonder if maybe on the next lap, should I take that line?
Ryan Hughes, our leader at the moment. Steve Lamson is trying to make it 4 overall victories in a row. Nice run for Chad Pedersen, the privateer. But look there, 9th place, our points leader, Damon Huffman. Steve Lamson, he goes to the front. Wow, that is taking it. Oh, he almost goes down. Ryan Hughes takes it back. Oh, trading mistakes there, David.
Well, you can see the reason why is because the track is so muddy in one place, and then you move over 2 or 3 feet, and it's totally dry. And what happened is, to start that off, Ryan went into the berm, just stuck the bike in there, probably drugged the frame and the foot pegs, and that allowed Lamson to get a little inside line. And Lamson, a little overexcited, and he blew it and rode into the mud, and Ryan got him right back. You can see right here, completely different lines, and the lines they're taking are nice and dry, but in the middle, totally muddy, nowhere to go.
Different lines, different techniques. We're coming to a section of the racetrack where Steve Lamson earlier was just singling, whereas Ryan Hughes, let's see if it happens again. Ryan Hughes triples. Now we're seeing double there for, oh, this is side by side. The timing may work out for Steve Lamson. He goes to the outside, momentarily has the lead, and he's done it. He's gone to the front.
That was a nice move by Lamson. He's been making time through there, but he wasn't able to do it in a different line. That time he took the inside, and he gave up a little bit in that first little triple there where Ryan passed him back briefly, but then it worked out in the end. Well, here it is again. You see Ryan coming out of the corner. He's able to triple those first 3 where Lamson can't, but it ruins Ryan's rhythm for this next section of jumps. And right there now, as they go through into the corner, Lamson's able to triple, and his rhythm just works out a little bit better. He positions himself to the outside, stays side by side with Ryan, then he's got the inside into the next corner. So it's an excellent move and an excellent positioning on Lamson's part to take over the lead.
Many times you would think if a rider can get on the throttle and triple getting into something, he'd be quicker. But Steve Lamson showed if you plan ahead that 2 doubles are better than 1 triple and a single. But where's Ryan Hughes? He seems as though he's either dropped back or Steve Lamson has absolutely just gassed it and pulled clear.
Well, you see he's clearing his vision right there. Everything looks good for Steve Lamson right now. I think he was a little faster than Ryan, but something must have happened to Ryan, maybe a mistake or something, because he's dropped well off the pace.
Steve Lamson hoping to go on, as we mentioned before, to 4 overall victories in a row. At one point of the season, he was a full 61 points behind the lead. Now he's a true contender. Looks like his mechanics there are pretty relaxed.
Yeah, you know, I would be. And that's Pete Steinbrecher, that's Doug Henry's mechanic, who's still going around to the races and trying to help out any way he can. You mentioned before Jeff Stanton, who was standing around the racetrack trying to help the riders out, point out lines. That's why they wear these headphones. These guys can talk to each other and share information and try to get it out to the riders as quickly as possible.
That's a pretty tough team when you figure you have Jeff Stanton, Pete Steinbrecher, and Mike Goslar. But look at this battle between riders. Denny Stevenson, we talked about him earlier, number 18. F&S Suzuki is his sponsors. That's a local Suzuki dealership that's been very involved in promoting this event. Good to see him doing well. Brian Deegan ahead of him. But look at this. Mike Brown, first time we've seen him, second in the points. He's got some work to do.
No, he definitely does, and it's hard to tell at this point if he just got a bad start and he's working his way up with maybe a faster pace than these guys. We haven't seen that yet, but he's definitely got a long ways to go to get to the front. The leaders have checked out. The best he can hope for is possibly a 3rd place.
Mike Brown on the move back here. Well, nice spirited run by Brian Deegan there. That was kind of a Steve Lamson move there through that section.
Yeah, it sure was. He just had excellent timing through there, got through there fast, and that's all that section is all about, timing.
Talk about timing. Look at how that just backed up, and Mike Brown certainly lost his momentum. Nice little battle here. Mike Craig, Honda of Troy. Then he had Brian Deegan. Then, of course, Denny Stevenson, which we spoke about. And then Mike Brown. Now, coming in here second in the points, and he can see all these guys ahead of him. You know, he has a real shot, as you said, at moving up to 3rd. That would really help him in the points with Huffman way back in 9th.
Well, Lamson has proven that although some of the guys have called this a one-line track because of the rain, that you can, in fact, pass. And so it's possible, and it's just hard to tell if he'll be able to get around these guys. Sometimes if you stay behind a pack of riders too long, you start riding the way they ride, making the same mistakes, and you get stuck in their flow, and it's really tough to make a pass, and in most cases, you never do. So he's got to get around them quick.
Tim Ferry came in third in the points. This is important for him, but it looks like Mike Craig is starting to put some pressure here on Tim Ferry. So we see all the way from third back to, I guess, would be 7th place. It's tight, and Mike Craig's going to work on Ferry.
Well, Mike Craig pretty aggressive right here, and I like the line he's got. He's got the inside in the corner, and he just out jumps Ferry. Both these guys are excellent riders in the Supercross, and it's paying off here on the outdoors. Mike Craig just a little more aggressive, though.
Mike Craig decided not to take that rut. Everyone else there, Mike Craig went around to the outside. What was he looking for?
Well, I'm not sure if he did it on purpose or if it was an accident, really, because what happened was he drifted over that rut. It became a little bit of an off-camber, and actually, if we could go back and slow-mo that, you would have seen his front wheel wash out just a little bit, so possibly that was just luck.
It is working for him. We mentioned that it's very tight up at the top. Let's take a look for our points leader. He's still back. Let's take a look at this week's Suzuki Flashback. We're not going back very far, just to 1994, but there was some great racing action here last year at Troy, Ohio. Ryan Hughes leading Moto number 1, but check out this challenge from Doug Henry.
They come into this back section of these big jumps where it's all timing, and they're side by side all the way through there. It looks like Ryan's going to get Doug Henry back, but they go into the corner, and Doug has a faster line on the outside and retakes the lead.
Doug Henry goes to the front. Ryan Hughes tries everything that he can to mount a challenge, but he tries too hard, comes in, loses the front end, does a face plant, and look at all the riders that go by him. Another man on the move was Jeff Emig on his Yamaha.
He was fast through this section, but it caught up with him later. A scary moment. Watch to the left of your screen. Number 6, Jeff Emig. He jumps a little too far here, grabs a handful of throttle, nose dives into the face of that jump, and he walked away. He didn't walk pretty, but he walked away.
And Doug Henry walked away with the win in Moto number 1. Moto number 2, Ezra Lusk battles with Ryan Hughes. They get caught, and then Steve Lamson takes advantage of the mistake and goes to the front.
Further back in the pack, watch what happens right here. Brian Deegan dragging one of the riders down the racetrack. Lucky he didn't get his foot stuck in the swing arm or the tire.
But up front, Damon Huffman makes the move on Lamson, comes through with a charge in the late stages to win Moto number 2. And with a 2nd place finish in Moto number 1, he goes home the overall champion. Back in 1995, you can see the conditions are much different than they were in 94. Mike Brown is hoping that he can thread his way through the mud here and gain some valuable points. The man he's chasing is number 23, Tim Ferry, who has no goggles on at the moment. How tough will that be?
Real tough. And you can see he's already looking over his shoulder. As he came out of the corner, he's looking over his shoulder at Mike Brown. It looked like right there he just let Mike by. Now he's looking over his shoulder again, so obviously a big problem.
He's probably looking over his shoulder for Beeville Forte, of course, is a Scott representative who's had a lot of promotions going on this weekend as well. Oh, those goggles, look out. Oh, man, big crash for Tim Ferry. We're talking about he was looking for goggles. Now he's going to be looking for the ambulance. Hopefully, he's okay. Overjumped it like we saw Jeff Emig do last year, and then Denny Stevenson, having no place to go, hit him right in the back.
Well, this is another look. I don't even know if I want to see this, but if you can see the left of your screen right there, Ferry mistimed that. You see he's running the throttle wide open. He lands short, crashes down in that bottom, and Denny Stevenson is already in the air. Nothing he could do about it. He landed on the brakes. They make contact, and Stevenson just kind of jumps over the front end unscathed, but I would have to think that Ferry is going to be hurting from this impact.
Ferry is now being tended to by the paramedics on site. He's talking with them, of course. First he did the face plant, then he got hit by another bike. He's going to be sore, like you say, David.
Well, I think goggles are the last thing on his mind now. I just hope he's not hurt.
We just see a change. Well, we did briefly see a change there for Damon Huffman, but Brian Deegan comes right back. Now, this is not the kind of company that we have seen Damon Huffman riding in the past, but it seems like that's all he can get out of the bike today.
Well, I think a bad start didn't help things either, and right there electing to follow Brian through that section, I don't think that was a smart thing to do to follow him, but right there he triples that section, so maybe he knew he had that one up his sleeve and he could make a clean pass there.
Well, there was a Supercross move for you. Damon Huffman moving past Brian Deegan. Now you can see some of that Supercross style coming through. Of course, he just obliterated the competition in the West 125 Supercross season in 1995. Art Ekman is with his mechanic, Tony Berluti.
I had Damon in 14th place, and after the first lap of action, he's already picked up 6 spots. He's pouring it on. You can see it's one of his favorite tracks.
Yeah, it's one of his favorite tracks. Off the line, I thought I had him in about top maybe 8. And I don't know, I think something must have happened back there in the woods somewhere. I didn't see what happened, but yeah, when he first came around, I think he was in about 14th. I think he's worked up to 9th. Hopefully we can get in the top 5.
Damon Huffman is currently just outside the top 5. With that pass he made over Brian Deegan, he's moved himself into 6th place. Now, David, do you think on this kind of track, similar to a Supercross, even with a bad start, you would expect Damon Huffman to be higher?
Well, not really. I mean, this is the 125 class that we've seen so far this season has been really competitive in the top 7 or 8 spots, even it's sometimes the top 10. So this is a good ride for him to come from, you know, approximately 14th up to just outside the top 5. And I think he can do a lot better in the second moto with a better start.
Huffman currently sits in 6th place, running down the top 5. Lamson, Hughes, Pedersen, Brown, and Craig. We'll be right back.
Motocross on ESPN2 is being brought to you by Suzuki. Right now, your Suzuki dealer has the ride you've been waiting for and the financing to get it.
Welcome back to Troy, Ohio. We saw just before we went to commercial a wicked crash of this man, Tim Ferry. The preliminary report, believe it or not, is just a bruised shoulder and a sprained thumb. He was very lucky, David.
Oh, I think so, because like you said, he clobbered the face of that jump with his body himself. Then he got clobbered by another bike. So I think that's going to be a lot easier to deal with than that broken jaw he suffered earlier this year.
But what a great success story for this guy, Chad Pedersen. Had his motorcycle stolen at Budds Creek. Had a great start today. Currently runs 3rd. This guy really has made great gains with a production motorcycle. Now, one of the guys who's put this effort together is Jim Finch. He's with Art.
Chad got the great start, and he's got a pretty good lead on the gentleman Brown right behind him.
16 seconds. I think he can do it. He can do it.
This would be the highlight of the year, wouldn't it?
You're damn right. We've been waiting for this one. I'm stoked.
I think Chad Pedersen's pretty stoked as well. He has an opportunity to go for a podium finish here. Now, we talk about production motorcycles. Of course, these are all based on production bikes, but the ones they race, they're pretty special, aren't they?
Well, the factory guys get the trick stuff. They got just about every part has been retooled and machined and massaged to where everything fits perfect and runs right. And they also have a lot of mechanics and engineers to help them make that thing run right. Well, for Chad, it's pretty much his own effort and his mechanic, and they've had a lot to overcome after having that bike stolen, which had all his trick parts and titanium. But a lot of help from Pro Circuit and other people, and he seems like it's all paying off for him now. He's been getting good starts with that bike.
We go back up front to take a look at our leader because we are on the final stages here of Moto number 1. Of course, that's Steve Lamson. Now, he is on a factory Honda with the trick stuff that David was just telling us about, but not taking anything away from the great run of Chad Pedersen. This guy, Steve Lamson, he just seems like he's unstoppable, David.
Oh, he is. I don't see anybody that can really do anything about it. And right now it looks like Mike Brown has definitely closed into that gap. We talked about 16 seconds before. It looks like about 1 now. So big problems for Pedersen.
We don't know if it was a miscue from Pedersen or if Mike Brown is smelling those points, because he knows that if he can finish here and pass Pedersen, he may, after Moto number 1, actually have the points lead over Damon Huffman, who currently runs further back in the pack. So this is important for the podium, but it's also very important for the points.
Well, it's important for both these guys. You know they're both going to give it everything they've got. Pedersen wants to hold on to perhaps his best finish so far this season, and also Brown is looking for valuable points and seems to have the speed right now. Goes to the inside, cuts him off.
He made an attempt at a block pass, but it didn't work. But hang on to your hats, because here comes a hard driving Mike Brown, gets the power down better, and does, wow, with a nice sail across that triple, goes into 3rd place.
You can see how dirty Mike Brown is too. So he's come from pretty far back. Remember earlier he was behind a whole pack of riders, and I talked about how if he waited too long he might fall into the pace of those guys. Well, obviously he didn't. He carved through everybody, and now passed Pedersen into 3rd place. Strong ride for him.
Another strong ride on the final lap for Steve Lamson. He has such a huge lead. Yeah, he can wave to the fans. He can do some tricks. Boy, the fans love when they do this on the last lap.
Well, now he knows how Jeremy feels in Supercross. Being able to dominate and play around with the fans and cross it up and wave at people. I mean, you can see him. He's glancing over to another section of the racetrack where his next closest contender is, which is way back there. At this point, he could probably fall down or stall it and still win the race. It's got to be a really good feeling.
Steve Lamson's got to be feeling great now. Now, David, what do you think he's doing different? I mean, he's been untouchable.
Well, last year, I think he wound up second in the 125 National Championship, so he's no stranger to going fast on a 125. And this year, Doug Henry's not in the class, so pretty much left him out there to dominate. He's been doing it.
Steve Lamson with the confidence. You can never beat confidence in motocross, and it's paying here for the factory Honda rider. Steve Lamson crosses the line, wins Moto number 1. Checking the results of Moto 1, we see that Steve Lamson, of course, comes in on top. Nice run there for Pedersen. As we mentioned, 5th place held down by Mike Craig. Damon Huffman recovered for a 6th place finish. Art Ekman is with our winner.
Well, Amy, Wes McCoy was telling me that he went to you and said, now, when we ask you to turn it up, are you going to turn it up? You said, I will, but they never asked you. They didn't have to in this race.
I was kind of turning it up myself. I just had to, I had to get away from them guys up behind Ryan for a few laps, and kind of hard to pass, so I just went for it and rode a smooth, comfortable pace, but I was comfortable riding, so.
4 wins, 3 second places in the last 7 motos. You're on the roll, and you continued it after the break.
Yep, I'm going to keep going. Hopefully next Moto 2, get a good start and roost away.
We'll let you hit the cold swimming pool here before the next Moto.
Thank you.
For this week's Honda riding tip, let's check in with the little professor, David Bailey.
This week we're going to talk about jumps. Now Larry Ward right here is approaching a triple jump. Watch his foot. He taps the rear brake. You don't see the wheel actually stop, but that dropped the front end of the motorcycle. Here's another look at Doug Henry. Watch his foot. Taps the brake just lightly, just enough, because he didn't want to change the bike radically. Now sometimes you'll see him stop the rear wheel, which really changes the angle. Right here, McGrath doing a nice job of landing with the power full on. You can see the mark he left when he landed. Look how forward on the motorcycle he still is. Very aggressive. That's what helped him earn 3 Supercross titles. This is a look at Todd DeHoop riding through a rut, approaching a double jump, keeping the bike nice and straight in the air, again landing with the power on. Here's a good example of Jeremy staying lower to the ground than his competition. Right there on the takeoff, he sucks his body into the motorcycle, soaks up all that suspension, stays lower to the ground in the process, which allows him to make this pass. Well, there's several different looks at jumps. The main thing is to stay relaxed, and this is what you can look forward to. I'm David Bailey with this week's Honda riding tip.
Thank you, David. Of course, here in Troy, Ohio, jumping is very important. It's similar to a Supercross circuit, as we've talked about previously, and this man, Steve Lamson, he's sure putting it together.
Like I said before the first moto, I think everyone fears this guy, and after that first moto win, I know they are now, because the points, because of where everyone else finished, have really tightened up.
Speaking of points, you're looking at our new points leader. He has overtaken Damon Huffman now. Mike Brown leads the 125 AMA national point standings, but anything can happen here. We're getting ready for the start of Moto number 2. It looks like it has dried somewhat. Let's see how they get off the line this time and who gets the all-important hole shot. We're looking closely. Lamson, nice start, but it looked like it may have been 36. Yes, Chad Pedersen. Wow, he loves this racetrack. Another good start. Lamson comes in behind.
Oh, he's got that production Honda hooked up. He's got a 2nd place start in the first moto. Just about a hole shot. Ryan Hughes just nipped him, but a hole shot here.
Looks like another Honda there in 3rd as Lamson. Oh, I thought he had the lead for a moment. Brian Deegan comes through, making it a 1-2-3 Honda streak. We're looking through at some of the other riders. One person I didn't see was Damon Huffman. Again, a poor gate.
Well, a poor gate. And you know, up front, Chad Pedersen has got the timing through this whoop section dialed. Actually, I think he could show Lamson a thing or two through there, and actually made up a little time. So not uncomfortable with riding out front right here.
It is amazing what confidence will do, and especially clear vision will do. Chad Pedersen, who's been very strong on the Supercross series this year, had a best of a 5th in Las Vegas. But look out, here comes Lamson. He comes to the inside. Oh, he made it look easy.
Well, I think Pedersen just left the door a little too wide open right there, and Lamson rode right through it on the inside. And now I think probably Pedersen will be able to learn a thing or two from Lamson, and if he can do that, he might be able to pull away from the rest of the pack.
Now, didn't that take a little pressure off him? Now he has a chance to follow the fastest guy in the AMA 125 Outdoor Nationals. He can kind of hopefully latch on and hang on to this.
Well, yeah, you'd think so, but he had a chance to do that in the first moto because he got a great start. Lamson came by him, and he wasn't able to hang on. But a lot of times between motos, you can review things in your head, and your mechanic can spot things that he noticed, and you can put it all together, and hopefully he can put it together and have another good finish here.
We talked about a 5th place finish for Chad Pedersen in Las Vegas in a Supercross, but he also had a 5th in San Diego. He had 3 6th place finishes, so this is the kind of track that he likes. Now, Art Ekman has again caught up with his mechanic, Jim Finch.
Jim, there's no question with a whole shot and leading most of that first lap that the bike is where you want it.
You got it. Man, Pro Circus really got us a strong runner motor this time. I've tuned it to death. I mean, it's there. We're running hard.
Well, he's up there, and Hughes is right on his tail, though.
Yeah, I think Ryan will give him fits. You know what I mean? I don't think he's a Ryan runner, but
well, this will give him the right experience.
Right, the top 5. That's bitching for a privateer. That's all you can say. I'm happy.
I don't think there's any question that Jim Finch is happy. And of course, so is his rider, Chad Pedersen. Right now, it seems as though he's holding his own there against Ryan Hughes.
It gives you a lot of confidence when you can come off the line with a hole shot. You know your bike is fast enough to deal with everybody else, and I'm sure he's pretty comfortable with his fitness. He's been riding long enough and doing well in indoor Supercross stuff, and he knows he can go the distance.
Checking the Honda field summary, of course, Steve Lamson leads it with Pedersen in pursuit. A bad start for Huffman, but he's recovered to 7th. We'll be right back. For these Motocross Park in Troy, Ohio, Jan Beekes and David Bailey in the booth, and you're getting a look at Ryan Hughes putting a move, working himself to 2nd place past Pedersen.
You know what impresses me is although Pedersen has been passed, look at how close these guys are to Lamson. Lamson's the fastest guy on the planet on the 125 right now, and Pedersen's a privateer hanging with these guys.
Very impressive performance for him. And of course, Ryan Hughes, concerned about points at the moment, has to go after Lamson, has to try and steal it away. This is the section of the track where maybe he's going to try and pull out just a little bit extra. But the man who might be able to answer those questions for us is, of course, his mechanic, Wyatt Seals, and he is standing by with Art Ekman.
After taking a look at the first moto, Wyatt, it certainly showed that your man was in shape, great shape.
Yeah, we spent some time working pretty hard, the last week that we had off, and he's been working a lot on his training. I know a week's not going to make a lot of difference, but it helps in his head. So, and it did show the first moto. So hopefully this second moto will be even better.
Well, the way Steve Lamson is running, doesn't look like he'll have to stand a chance to catch him, but if something should happen, he's right there.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you've got to be there to capitalize on somebody's mistake. So, and Lamson has got a head of steam going, that's no doubt. After last weekend, he was mistake-free and really riding smooth. So all we need to do is be there, and if something happens to him, just take advantage of it.
David, do you really need to be closer than Ryan Hughes is to put the kind of pressure on Lamson to where he might make a mistake?
I think so. With the confidence that Lamson's riding with right now, and there you get a look at Damon Huffman's mechanic. He looks pretty disgusted with the way things are going today for him, but Lamson's got tons of confidence. So if somebody's back there behind him, 4 or 5 seconds, that's not going to bother him at all. But if Ryan was pressuring him right there like he pressures Huffman in the Supercross, those kinds of battles, you can bet that Lamson will be riding a little differently.
Now we can see what Tony Berluti was looking at. That's Damon Huffman now trying to make a move on Brian Deegan. He goes to the outside, grabs a handful of throttle, kind of pushes Brian Deegan out of the way for position.
And the frustrating thing is look up ahead of Huffman up the track. There's hardly anybody up there. That's got to be frustrating for him, knowing coming in here with the points lead, getting a bad start, and then just having 100 yards between the next guy and himself that he has to catch, and then another 100 yards to the next guy. It's really difficult when you don't have a big pack of riders to stay enthused and aggressive.
Taking a look back through the field, Guy Cooper. He's a rider that's run every single outdoor national here since 1987. The fans love him.
Well, he's nicknamed Airtime, and I think most of us know why. This guy does some pretty wild antics off any kind of jump. And what better place to make an appearance outdoors once you retire than a race like Troy, Ohio, which has probably more jumps than any outdoor track in the country.
He is another one of these riders that's working on Brian Deegan. He's having a tough day. Boy, when you start slipping back, things go from bad to worse, don't they?
No, it's a lousy feeling. Once you get passed by 2 or 3 riders, you're momentum kind of gets interrupted, your confidence kind of goes out the window, and then you get challenges from more people, and there's really not much you can do about it. It's tough to respond.
You got just a small glimpse there of a little bit of styling being done by Guy Cooper off some of those big jumps. He's 33 years old from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Now 33, he's probably double the age of some of these kids out here, huh?
Oh, come on, don't make me feel bad. No, I raced with Guy, and it's amazing to see him out there riding as competitively as he is still. And I know that Guy is a fantastic rider. I mean, just all-around rider. This guy rides trials, he rides enduros, he could probably road race if he wanted to. He's just an all-around talented rider, and the people love to see him, especially when he does those antics.
Now, he's a guy that he is a little older, but he still goes full bore. And he's sometimes prone for having some big crashes, but he always bounces right back. Looking at the Honda field summary, a Honda sits atop it. Steve Lamson, the pilot, Hughes, Brown, Pedersen, Craig, rounding out the top 5. We'll be right back after this. The Motocross Park, Troy, Ohio, is the site of AMA 125 Motocross National Action. Jan Vigas, David Bailey in the booth, and of course, Art Ekman in the pits. The best battle on the racetrack is these 3 riders. Chad Pedersen, followed by Mike Craig, and then the Suzuki of Damon Huffman. But look at that, David, all 3 different lines.
And right there, Mike Craig with the best line up the inside. He's going to go around Pedersen. Looks like he's going to take over that spot. And Huffman has caught these guys from quite a ways back. Remember in that earlier shot, I said, look how far it is to the next rider. Well, he's caught them both, and he needs these points desperately.
We saw Damon Huffman earlier make some nice Supercross style passes. Now, of course, another guy who's real good in Supercross, especially on the big jumps, is Mike Craig. This should be a good battle.
Well, I think they're going to both have the same idea when they get to certain sections, so that'll be tough. I think Huffman will have to get pretty creative and probably just muscle his way around. And, you know, like I said, I mean, they both have pretty much the same techniques. They both do well in Supercross. And the only passes we've seen Huffman make on the riders that are similar to his caliber have just been real aggressive, kind of get in there and shove him out of the way, and he's going to have to do that to get around Craig.
As the track starts to dry, now of course there are some clouds in the area. We could have a thunder shower at any time, but it seems like when it starts to dry, it is more like a Supercross, isn't it?
Well, absolutely, but you can see right there, see how dry it is and hard packed? If it does rain, which it has been threatening to, that dry stuff becomes ice, very slick, and that's going to be a real challenge for these guys.
Now, they may not really have their motorcycles set up for that either, because they've pretty much tuned the bike for the conditions at the moment.
Well, you can see how hard packed it is when they land off that triple right there. Anywhere in the fastest line or the groove, it's very hard packed, almost like riding on cement, especially through this section here. Very unforgiving if you're to come up a little short and what they call case it on these things. And once it rains, it's not going to soak into that. It's just going to sit there on the top and just be like riding on grease.
Huffman continuing to work on Craig. It looks as though they had chosen similar timing through here, but let's see if maybe Huffman can get a little better drive. It looks to me as though Craig actually may have pulled out to that section of the course.
Now, Huffman does look a little faster right there. He's got a little better line going to the inside.
We'll have to see how this one works out. Huffman goes to the inside, kind of works out to be a block pass. It's not over yet. Craig comes back, but Damon Huffman on his Suzuki comes through with another position.
Well, that looked pretty easy. I think Craig just made a mistake by going to the outside. Maybe he didn't realize that Huffman was that close to him, because if he did, I don't think he would have taken that outside line. Maybe it was just a dumb move, one or the other.
David, Damon Huffman must surely have been told by his mechanic, Tony Berluti, that he lost the points lead after Moto number 1. Is that going to motivate him to go that much quicker?
I would think so. I would be motivated. I'm probably pretty angry. And a lot of times guys ride better when they're mad. Again, though, when we saw a shot of him starting into the woods section, it was a long ways, so we couldn't even see who was next in line for him to catch up and pass.
While everyone else is scrambling to buy
aggressive as possible and just pick up as many positions as he can. He's definitely not going to win today.
Boy, you could see something in that shot. I thought I started to see some rain falling as we look back towards Mikel Pichon. Yes, it has started to rain. The first person who's dumped his bike as a result is Mike Craig, the one we were just looking at. We saw Pedersen and another go by. It is raining hard, and you mentioned, David, it's going to get ultra slick out there.
Well, I don't know. He's taken a long time to get going. There he's holding his arm down, so obviously he's in pain, but he didn't look like he was in a hurry to get up. Now he's pulling off the racetrack, so Mike Craig continues to have bad luck and injuries.
Look at the rain come down here. It is pouring here in Troy, Ohio, and it is going to get slick. We'll find out shortly who is the one who can handle these tough conditions. But let's watch how Ryan Hughes handles this slippery surface.
Now you can see how slick it is. These guys have been tripling that thing right there, and he got sideways and couldn't even double it. So Ryan's going to have to really tone it down. He's aggressive, but it doesn't work with this wet soil. And right here, another guy paying the price.
Damon Huffman, he was on a charge. We were watching him move through the field, but the slick surface has caught him out as well.
Well, that was at the landing of that triple where he's been making a lot of his passes earlier, and probably when he landed, just lost the front end of that corner right there. And I'm just assuming, but I think that's a pretty good assumption. It's very slick on the landing. You see there, these guys are riding just so careful. Now another guy down. That's Pichon again. He went down in the first moto, and it's almost, they can't even stand on the ground to get themselves going again because it's so slick everywhere.
From this angle, David, it doesn't look that slick, but it's the case that when it's hard pack, it doesn't take much water at all.
Right. I mean, it's basically like putting water on a sidewalk or something and then trying to ride aggressive and get traction. You just can't get any slide everywhere. And that's the tricky part. It's deceiving. So you go into a section thinking, oh, I'll hook up here, and then you just wash out.
Here's a name we haven't talked about yet today, but he's on a serious charge. That's, of course, Robbie Reynard on the factory Kawasaki. Man, he doesn't look like he's slowing down at all, David.
Not a bit. He flew through that corner, and he looks pretty aggressive. I don't know that Robbie is that good of a rider in the mud, but doesn't seem to be slowed down by it at all.
Robbie Reynard, he's only 18 years old, but he's from Moore, Oklahoma. You would think that maybe he has some experience. Well, we have a red cross flag there. He had to kind of back off the throttle. Now, did he have to slow down that much? Is that the rules, David?
Well, you have to use your own judgment. I think right there, just to be sure, remember earlier, that's where Ferry crashed, and he was kind of in a blind spot, and Denny Stevenson ran right over him. So I think because he couldn't see what was going on down in that bottom right there, he just decided to play it safe.
The Honda field summary shows Lamson, Hughes, Brown, Huffman, and then Robbie Reynard is on a charge.
ESPN2 has been brought to you by Honda, defending champions and holders of the last 7 consecutive Supercross titles. Honda, come ride with us.
Steve Lamson well into his final lap here in moto number 2, but the rain is pouring down on the surface. He has such a big lead, David, he can really take it easy.
No, I don't think it matters much to him. Probably just feels good because it is so hot out here. It's probably cooling these people off. I know the spectators are probably digging it. That's same like the first moto. He's got plenty of distance to the second place rider and nothing to worry about.
Steve Lamson within sight of the checkered flag. He does it a perfect day. A win in Moto 1, a win in Moto 2. Steve Lamson has done it again. 4 overall victories in a row. Ryan Hughes comes in second in Moto 2. Brown, Huffman round out the top 5. Chad Pedersen, another great run for him in 6th. Art Ekman is with our winner.
Lammy only picked up 19 points on the lead now. You're right where you want to be.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to just keep riding like I've been and not really worry about the points. And that's why I said today. I'm not worrying about them. I'm just going out there and riding and doing my best I can. So it pays off.
When it started to rain, what went through your mind?
One thing, I was glad I had roll-offs and Scott goggles on me because those saved me. And I just rode smooth. I know it was getting slick. I washed out a few places, but I just played it smart and didn't do nothing dumb.
The 125-point standings are getting closer each and every time. Brown, our new points leader, Hughes, Huffman, there's Steve Lamson, is closing in fast. Art Ekman is with our new points leader, who, of course, is Mike Brown.
Well, here's our new points leader in the 125s, Mike Brown. Consistency paying off, but I was a little worried for you there with the flags in the wheel and Huffman coming up from behind. You held him off well.
Yeah, just putting all the flags. I mean, you started out with a little miss in the motor, and I mean, you just kept doing it. But I mean, as long as I kept it revved up, it's going all right, but I was just kind of scared to jump everything, so he caught way up, and then I got off the track over there and got banners in my wheel, and that didn't help very much at all, so I just took it easy the last half of the race and just hung in there and pulled off with 4th place overall.
Well, then when it rained, you had to be more careful even that time with the slippery conditions.
Yeah, it was really bad with no back brakes, going into a corner when it was glassy slick and trying to use all your front brakes and feet and all and trying to get her stopped. But everything went well, and shoot, hope to be back here next week.
Mike Brown, our points leader, but look at this. Steve Lamson with a full 50 points coming out of here. perfect motos, but only 31 for Damon Huffman. He's starting to slide back through the points standings. Another guy who had a very, very tough day with no points whatsoever was Tim Ferry, who came in here third in the points. Let's go back to Art.
Another gutsy ride in this heat. We started the rain just before you came in, just to kind of help you cool off.
Yeah, it helped a little bit out there. I got a pretty good start into the first corner, but I got pushed out and had to ride real hard to get up, and I caught up to Lamson a little bit, but he pulled back away. So he's riding with a lot of confidence, riding really good right now, so I just got to keep training, and I think my bike's running better, and it's ridden all year, so I'm looking forward to it.
By the way, the points lead is tightened up, Ryan. Anything could happen. You're right there.
Yeah, I'm probably close to the lead now, I think, so we'll have to see.
Ryan Hughes finds himself only 3 points now out of the points lead, but this man, Steve Lamson, is within 5. A special thanks today at the Kenworthy's Motocross Park to F&S Racing, Dunlop, and Scott for their help. For Jan Beekes and David Bailey in the booth, Art Ekman in the pits, we'll see you next time from Unadilla.
Motocross, the AMA series from New Berlin, New York. So long.